two pieces, both attacking your king, both giving check at exactly the same time. The king must do only one thing: run. It cannot block both, it cannot capture both. This is the double check, and it is the most violent, most forcing move in all of chess. When your king is in check from one piece, you have three different options: move the king, block the check, or capture the checking piece. But when your king is in a double check, attacked by two different pieces simultaneously, blocking and capturing becomes impossible. You cannot block two checks at once, and you cannot capture two pieces at once. The only escape, or the only way to escape, is a double check. In a double check is to move the king. The only way to escape a double check is to move the king. In this particular position, black plays knight to f4. Knight to f4, giving a check to the king on g2, and the rook has a discover check on g1, on g8 as well. Now in this situation, this is an attack. This is what we call a double check. A check from the knight and a check from the rook as well. Now it is impossible for this rook to capture this knight because we have a double check. The king cannot capture back the piece attacking because it is not just the check is not just coming from a single piece, it is coming from two different pieces simultaneously. And the only option left for this white king is to run away, move to a very safe square. This simply means that in a double check, you control your opponent's response completely. You know that the only move left for your opponent is the king. They must move the king. And if you have calculated where the king can go, you can often set up a devastating follow-up, ultimately a checkmate. So how does a double check come about? Double checks always come from a discovered attack. If you have not watched my video on discovered attacks, you can click on the link above and see how discovered attacks work. They happen when you move a piece and that piece gives one check, and because you have moved that piece, you uncover a second piece that was behind the moved piece, which also gives a check. Again, look at this same position and see how knight, based on moving the knight from g6 to f4, giving a check, and then because you have uncovered because you have moved this knight, you uncovered another check from the rook on g8, and then you give another check from the rook. So the key important thing to note here is that the moving piece and the revealed piece both have to be pointing at the king simultaneously. They have to be attacking and checking the king. This requires a careful setup, usually several moves in advance. So for you to achieve this, you need to have properly put up a plan in order to achieve double checks. The most famous double check pattern that leads directly to a checkmate is the smothered mate. The smothered mate is one of the checkmates that we've covered in this particular channel. So let me show you how this smothered mate works. So let's take a look at this particular position and let's see the sequence in which white ends up checkmating using the smothered mate and also using the discovered attack um, that we talked about. So this particular tactics, white continues this game by playing queen to e6 check. With this queen to e6 check, white is directly attacking the king, and black has two options: either to block this by moving their rook here where it gets captured and eventually the king moves and there's checkmate, or black can decide to move the king to h8 in order to prevent the attack. And that is exactly what black did. Move the king to h8 and then the check is no more there. And afterwards, look at this beautiful move um by white. White played knight to f7 check. White played knight to f7 check, and if black should capture this, then white is just going to play queen to e8 check, and then when this rook comes back, there's going to be a checkmate. So this is a forced move, which is why whenever you are using the double check, you are controlling how your opponent is going to respond. So and now the next move by your opponent is king to g8. King to g8 to prevent the check that is coming from the knight, and this is where the discovered attacks come in. So the discover attack is white playing knight to h6. Knight to h6 double check. The check is coming from both the knight and the queen simultaneously. Now black does not have any option. They can't defend with the rook because they can only defend the check of the queen, but there's still a check coming from the queen, then from the knight rather. So the only move left for black is to completely move the king to h8. And when the king moves to h8, and now this is where white is going to deliver the toughest blow by playing queen to g8 check. Queen to g8 check, and the reason for this queen to g8 check is that the only move black can play here is not the king, because the knight is still occupying this position, but the rook. And um this completely hooks up black's position, because the king is completely blocked by its own pieces, right? And there is nowhere else for the king to go, and this is where white delivers the complete blow by playing knight to f7 checkmate. Knight to f7 checkmate, and then white is able to deliver a beautiful checkmate using the discover attack and then the smothered mate setup. So this sequence, it involves you sacrificing your queen and then giving a double check with the queen and the knight, and finally giving the checkmate. So the double check is in the middle, right? And is what makes it inescapable, right? White cannot, black in this position cannot escape it. The king must move to h8, and when the king moves to h-mate, the smothered mate is going to get delivered. So here is a little puzzle, and it's going to be white's turn to play in this particular position. Can you find it? There is a double check available that leads to immediate checkmate. You have about 15 seconds in this position to find the double check. I'm going to set up the position now in order for you to find the double check in this position. So this is um, this is an example of this position. Can you find the double checkmate in this position? Do you think you can find it? The double checkmate in this position. You have 15 seconds. So again, take a careful look at it. You are looking for an attack where you can attack both, then you can attack the king two times by your piece, right? Can you find a very beautiful move by white in this position? So right, I think 15 seconds is passed. The move is knight to g6 check. Knight to g6 double check. The check is coming from both the knight and the rook that is on h1, right? And then white can eventually deliver a checkmate by moving the rook to h8, and this is a complete checkmate, right? So yeah, tomorrow we'll look at passed pawn. Why a single pawn can decide an entire end game completely on its own. Subscribe, and I will see you then. Bye.